All I know is that my life kind of started then. And it was really like I had things to write about, and I had experiences that I think just made me just a better musician and a better person. Anytime I see classical kids, I'm like, you go break the rules, like go get drunk. I mean, you know, take that with a grain of salt, but you know, yeah. I think I would have had a lot more fun with life and opened up if I would have just allowed myself to break a rule or two.
Welcome to Music Makes Us. I'm Kathleen Hanna, lead singer of the bands Bikini Kill and Le Tigre, and now I'm also a podcast host. On this show, I'm going to sit down with the most exciting musicians on the planet, and I'm going to get to talk to them about all kinds of things like snacks, perfect lyrics, unforgettable shows they've seen, treasured artifacts, and more. Everyone always says their podcast is for you, the listener, and that's totally true. But this is also for me. I'm looking for community and finding it in my fellow artists. My guest today is the one and only Laufey, the Grammy-winning Icelandic phenomenon whose lush vocals are at once so youthful and so classic. She's totally giving Roaring 20s 2.0. Don't go anywhere. I don't really think anybody could be hotter right now than Laufey is. 2025 was definitely her year. She was named one of Time's Women of the Year. She launched a mega world tour in September, hitting arenas in 43 cities across North America and Europe, filled with dates that immediately sold out. She also dropped a new album called A Matter of Time, for which she just won her second Grammy in 3 years. Laufey and I come from very different backgrounds. As a punk musician, I'm mostly self-taught. While Laufey is classically trained, she also grew up in a musical family that got her started on her first instrument, the cello, at age 4. And she graduated from the prestigious Berkeley College of Music, which I think is just massively cool. I can't wait to hear how our two very different backgrounds come together. She and I spoke a couple weeks before her Grammy win, but just after she received another very prestigious award. Congratulations on getting the Order of the Falcon Award, which is Iceland's highest national honor. Did you feel like I am really a hometown hero?
Oh my God. I didn't know, but it definitely felt very cool. Like it's something I've always known of growing up, and I kind of thought it was for older people. And so I was really definitely very, very honored. And I think for so much of my life growing up, because I'm half Chinese, and I always felt like a little bit of an oddball growing up in Iceland, getting something like that kind of recognition, and also just feeling the genuine flow of love from Icelanders has made me feel so much more seen and happy. And I don't know, I feel like I've been able to heal my relationship with growing up in Iceland after that. I'm sad that it took a music career to get there, but it's a special honor for sure.
Well, I got the key to the city in Olympia, Washington, which is kind of the town that my band started. So Bikini Kill got the key to the city. And I had a similar experience because the mayor actually came and apologized to us at the ceremony and was like, we didn't support you. We didn't acknowledge all the stuff you were doing. And, you know, you brought Olympia a lot of pride. And I didn't realize how healing that was, because we were like young kids trying to like, you know, start clubs, and like constantly the cops were shutting us down, and it was like,
right.
You know, but very different, very not the same.
But it's the same in that, you know, there's this place, and usually small towns, that, you know, you feel like they reject you at first, especially if you're a very creative person with loud thoughts and unique creative efforts. It's like you feel like those towns reject you, and then when you kind of come back a hero, I felt embraced by it for the first time. And it's very hard to like hate something that you grew up in that is now embracing, you know, it's the same in that way for sure.
Well, going back to your childhood, what is your first memory of hearing music?
It's so hard to trace because my mom is a violinist and she teaches violin students and plays in the Iceland Symphony. So I think like literally in the womb, not that it's a memory, but it's just always been a part of me. I think my first like actual playing music myself memory is I was given a violin when I was like 2, and it was kind of a joke. But I just remember standing on like a woven carpet in my living room and my feet really hurting because it was like a jute rug and my feet really hurt. And I remember holding the violin and there were so many rules. And I remember thinking, I hate this, or just my feet hurt. But it was very silly. Like, I think my mom was like, that's so funny. She can hold a violin now. Let's try to make her play a scale. And I was like, just a baby still.
There's something very fairy tale about a lot of things in your music and your story. And there's something about the little girl on the jute rug with her feet hurting, holding the violin, that's also kind of feels like it could turn into a folktale. You know what I mean?
Really
And then,
good.
you know, at first music hurt and then music didn't hurt and then it hurt again and then it didn't hurt.
You know, the best things in life hurt a little bit.
So what was the first song that you downloaded or the album that you bought that you were like, I want this? Not to have to do with like your parents or something that like was one of their albums, but like something that you're like, I'm interested in this.
I guess when I got an iPod first is when I was like buying music. I remember I got a gift card, like an Apple, like an iTunes gift card for my birthday from a family friend. And I remember buying the Pitch Perfect soundtrack. But that's
So good.
like not very early, like that's later on. I mean, I'd already developed like music taste, but I don't know why I remember buying that distinctly. Because otherwise I just listened to what was already like populated on the family iTunes account, which was like, I grew up thinking like adults didn't listen to pop music or anything new. Like, because my mom listened to only classical music and then my dad listened to only jazz and like 60s, 70s, like classic rock. So like my iPod was just full of the Beatles. That was, so I listened to a lot of the Beatles at first, but I guess I didn't buy it.
So then when you had your own little Apple card, you're like, I'm going to get the Pitch Perfect soundtrack.
Yeah, honestly. Yeah. If I go on my Apple now, it's like still like sometimes when I plug my phone in, it's the first song that plays.
I actually love those movies. Like,
Oh my God, I loved it. I remember thinking like this is so cool. Like I wanted to be in an a cappella group one day because of that. Like they were all these oddballs who were joined together with in music, and she was like making beats, and like it wasn't only about singing covers, it was kind of about like arranging them. I don't know. I thought it was cool. It was definitely inspirational.
were you into like musical theater and stuff?
I was, for sure. I loved old theater. Like I grew up watching a lot of like golden age cinema, and I think I loved jazz music through the lens of like I discovered it through those musicals first. So I loved anything like composed by Gershwin or Irving Berlin or Cole Porter, like the kind of the old musicals I was obsessed with. Then Hamilton came along and I jumped on the train, of course.
Is there a role that you're like, if I could ever have that role in that musical?
I mean, there are a lot of modern roles. There are a lot of roles that I think about, like from the past. And American in Paris is my favorite musical ever. And there's a dancer in it called Liza, who's like the main female character. And I always wanted to be her, but I'm not a dancer. Also, she's French, and I'm not French. So
I mean, you already got like the biggest award in Iceland. I think maybe you could learn to dance and speak
maybe.
French.
I mean, like, it's like
Yeah, I have a
on
feeling it's in
point.
you.
I'll do anything for an American Paris, honestly. But I want to write a musical one day. And I think it's such a beautiful art form that has birthed so many different forms of art and so much music that it's something that truly deserves to be preserved properly. And I really hope that it's something that continues to live on as entertainment for a couple more years at least.
Oh, yeah. I'm really into going to like junior high productions of like Annie Jr. or like My Fair Lady Jr. Like they have this whole thing where everything's junior.
And they just like cut the sex scenes or something.
Yeah, they cut all the sex scenes and they make it like short enough for kids. And I'm just like really into like going in and being like,
That's fun.
oh, they took out the really bad Miss Hannigan part because that was like too racy.
That's funny.
But you've talked about how like you had like a really kind of rigorous lifestyle, like goal driven up until you were about 20. And I'm wondering, like, was there a fork in the road where you're like, I'm going to change things up. I can't have this rigorous lifestyle?
Yeah, I think I moved to Boston when I was 19 to go to Berkeley. And I all of a sudden had this, like, who cares what happens, like, mindset that I'd never, ever, ever had. I think I got to Berkeley and it was just this almost like incubator. That's a weird word to use for it, but like, you know, people see it as a school. I saw it genuinely just as a nest for people to experiment. People don't say that often about Berkeley, but coming from a very strict classical background, I got to Berkeley and everyone was like making their own music and they were kind of all of a sudden the coolest musician to me was not the one who could play the piece the best, the music written on the paper. It was the best creator. It was the person writing the best song and, you know, creating their own world around it. I think I just became inspired by all these kids who were coming from all over the place and just really just charging on and not thinking too much about musical rules. I was so caught up with what my teacher would say or what my mom would say, who's also was a teacher of mine. And at Berkeley, it seemed like everyone cared a whole lot more about what they had to say and what their opinions were on their own music. And I thought that was really cool. I also was living alone for the first time, and I was like, I need to live. And I hadn't lived throughout high school because my primary focus was to get to a university abroad and kind of make it out of little Iceland. And I'd done it. And I all of a sudden was like, okay, I have nothing to lose. I have these 4 years to absolutely just try my best. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. And it's one of the very few things that I said I was going to do, and it actually worked out. I mean, I'm kind of shocked every single day. The fork in the road was also that I just stopped seeing music in boxes, and the genre divides became a little bit looser to me. Like, when I was growing up, classical music existed in one space, and then jazz music existed in another space, and then pop music existed in another space. Like everything, all the genres existed in their own worlds with their own people and their own musicians or even style. Like even like in my brain, the way that people dressed and acted in these different boxes were different. And I got to Berkeley and everything was mushed up. You know, there were kids who grew up playing classical, who were doing jazz or doing pop, or it was cool. It was just a mix. And I think that was like the greatest thing for me to see, because I could start writing for the first time without trying to follow the rules of some sort of style. Like I all of a sudden didn't have to declare that I was a classical musician or a jazz musician or a pop musician. I was just a musician. And I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely played into like the work that you've put out up till now. It's like kind of an amazing story. I totally, again, I'm like having all these visuals of like, you're like in an egg, like cracking out, like total goofy, weird things. Cause you sound like this like baby bird who's like just like
I was a little baby bird. I was too afraid to fly. And it's quite beautiful in that my life and music were so connected. I didn't dare to break any rules in my life. I didn't really want to drink. I didn't want to date. I didn't want to break the rules that the world had set for young women, kind of. And then the same with music. I followed all the musical rules. I did all the scales. I did the practicing. I learned the music on the page really well. And then at like 19, 20, I just decided to break the rules both in life, which led me to have the bravery to break the rules in music, or it was the music first and then the life. But I don't know what came first, but all I know is that my life kind of started then. I had things to write about, and I had experiences that I think just made me just a better musician and a better person. So I
Yeah.
always, anytime I see classical kids, I'm like, you go break the rules, like go get drunk. I mean, take that with a grain of salt, but I think I would have had a lot more fun with life and opened up if I would have just allowed myself to break a rule or two.
I'm completely untrained, and I've had vocal lessons and stuff so that I can like keep my voice together because I sing pretty athletically.
Yeah.
And but I never knew the rules to break them. But still, there are rules. Like in punk rock, it was like, even though we could be like, okay, let's not have a chorus or like, whatever, we're still playing, rock music, stuff that came from the blues and became rock music and became punk music, which was, yeah, about breaking the rules, but then rules come up around breaking the rules, where it's like there's a rule
Totally.
about how you always have to be breaking the rules, so you can't work with this kind of person, and you can't, like, my band in the 90s worked with Joan Jett, and a lot of people gave us flack because she was a major label artist. What people don't know about Joan Jett is that every major label rejected one of her hugest records that had hit after hit after hit. And so her and her manager drove around in their car and sold the records out of the back of their car on their own label. And so it was really interesting to be in my
Wow.
20s and being told I couldn't work with Joan Jett because she was like a major label industry person and that I was a sellout because of that. When I was like, no, she's a rule breaker. She's somebody who like, took me under her wing and was like, I care about you. I think that you're talented. I think you're important. When so many guys were like, shut the F up, and I was
It's
like,
always a guy.
yeah, but I was like, if you think that that's what punk is, then you don't know who Joan Jett is. I mean, she produced
Yeah.
the Germs record, so suck it. But anyways, I was just sort of talking about how not knowing the rules for me was great, but then I kind of had to change genre too. Like I went from being in a punk band to more of like a dance electronic-y band, but it was still very like DIY, cut and paste, collage. I loved it so much because I went from kind of playing rock music on the stage to being in a studio, cutting stuff up, learning samples, and being like, having that feeling maybe you had at Berkeley where I was like being reborn. I was like, I don't know how to do this. I know how to write a punk song. I'd been doing it for like 7, 8, 9 years. And then I was like, but I don't really know how to program drums. So
Yeah.
watching through the eyes of one of my bandmates who'd never been in a band before, watching as they started touring for the first time and all that stuff, it just made things feel really brand
Yeah.
new, So I think even if you're not taught, you can go through that same kind of
For sure.
metamorphosis.
Well, the thing about learning music growing up is like, I totally thought that I knew everything about music, And every single day, I swear, I feel like I know less now. Like, and not because I'm forgetting things, but because I'm being introduced to things that I don't know. It's like, and even within my own instrument, I mean, I grew up playing piano. Like from the age of 4 to 16, I did like competitive pre-professional classical piano. And then I got to Berkeley and I was taking jazz piano lessons, and I didn't know the instrument anymore. It's a completely different, like I keep learning the instruments I thought I knew in new ways. I was taking jazz cello lessons and all of a sudden it was like a completely different instrument. I've always said like the past 5 years for me have been like taking a master's degree. It's really every single day I'm learning something new. Do you feel like when you encounter something, like you say, like you said, you were writing like a song in a new style, or does that feeling scare you, or do you get kind of excited because you're like, okay, I don't know this. This is an opportunity to learn something new.
Oh, excited. I mean, the feeling of like, I used to work on tape because it was like before, that's how old I am. It was before nonlinear
It's
recording.
okay.
Like
We're
Pro
all
Tools.
back to tape.
I know.
We're all back to tape.
I know. But we were using like a 1/4 inch, 8-track in a basement. And I would just go in there every day and be like making loops and, using the sampler and then laying down the sample line and then like adding drums to it and adding, like anything I could find to use to make music, taking, clapping into something and then putting tons of reverb on it and scattering it all over the place. Like it was just so exciting
Yeah.
and so new. Also because I went from being in a band that pretty much like we wrote on the road. Like we would have a couple songs that didn't have words and I would
Wow.
just make up different words every night. And then by the end of the tour, we would know all of the songs really well. And then
That's
we'd go in
amazing.
and in like 3 or 4 days record the whole album. Don't recommend that.
But that's punk rock. Like, I
I know,
wish I
but
could do that.
I wish that I had more time. I mean, when we did a record that took, we had 3 days to make a single, I was like, this is the most luxurious spa I've ever been to. This is amazing. And now,
That's wild.
I spend a long time on albums. And I think do you use a mixture of like home recording and then going into a studio? Or are you primarily creating in a studio with other people?
My process, I feel like, has changed a little bit, but the one thing that stayed true is I almost always just write the songs on my own, like in my bedroom or at home. Like I need to be in such a vulnerable space. And I feel like the presence of anybody else sometimes takes away that level of me, that kind of honesty that I have. So, and I can't afford that. And especially with this last album, I wanted it to be so honest that I was scared that so honest while also having increased pressures of, I guess, a little bit more success. So I was like, this is not the time to go and change up my system and write with other people and, with hit makers or whatever. Like I need to really listen to my heart right now. But yeah, I almost always just write on my own and then I bring it to my producer with this album. I brought it to Spencer, who's worked with me on all 3 albums. And I feel so comfortable with him bringing those songs to him. And we kind of, just like record it and write strings to it. And that's kind of, I think, how I get the most honest version of my writing.
Well, thanks for sharing that because I was wondering how you made all this stuff. And I was like, I love the position that you took of like, I have to make the initial thing by myself. You know what I mean? And it's yours. And there is something really, there's so many great kind of overall concepts to A Matter of Time. And there's this one thing you said in an interview. And I just thought it was so beautiful. I was like repeating it to friends. I was like, isn't this absolutely gorgeous? You were like, I do have it written down. So I'm just looking to see. Okay, here it is. I want to say it correctly. The moment when Cinderella finds out it's struck midnight and she's running, the heartbeat that she has, that's the album. Dude,
Yeah.
that's so awesome. It's so beautiful. And there's so many like kind of fairy tales. And then there's like Laufey. Is it called Laufey Days?
Oh, a very Laufey day.
A very Laufey Day. And it's like part of the idea is that you help people who are, fans of your music, like romanticize their lives. And you have a song called Snow White, which the lyrics are totally fire and I absolutely love.
But mirrors tell lies to me, my mind just plays alone.
And you have Castle in Hollywood. And there's just so many cool I love fairy tales, folk tales, like all that kind of stuff. I'm a Rumpelstiltskin girl. I love Rumpelstiltskin. I love the idea of turning straw into gold. I talk about it a lot. He is very controversial because he was trying to steal a child. But we're just going to pretend that Rumpelstiltskin
those
part.
old folk tales have a lot of controversial points.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it's, our modern job is to get rid of those while taking the learning lessons away from them and moving forward with our lives. But yeah, I think so much about fairy tale. I think growing up in Iceland, you just have this like innate sense of wanderlust. It's such a magical place to grow up. Like the landscape is really otherworldly. And also because it is such an isolated little island in the middle of nowhere, you kind of become a dreamer. And I think fairy tales, for me, those stories were all my escape. And I think also my access to being a little rule breaker or access to those stories. Like I was afraid of going on a date or having a crush, but through the lens of a, Cinderella or something, I could kind of, live out those stories in a way. But I really wanted A Matter of Time to feel like fairy tale gone wrong a little bit, and kind of like a honest fairy tale, because I think growing up I felt like falling in love would be this fairy tale thing, and as much as it is at times, there are a lot of questions that follow, a lot of anxieties, a lot of questions about life. I feel like falling in love with somebody unveils so much about yourself. Like I've never learned more about myself than I have falling in love for the first time. I've never been quite so anxious or questioned, who I am, but when you are bearing yourself to a person, at one point, there's nothing you can hold back from them anymore. Like everything comes out eventually. And that's kind of what A Matter of Time is. And it, starts quite prim and exactly what you'd expect from like a fairy tale movie. And then it just unravels and gets more anxious and more anxious. And then the end, like in Sabotage, it's just like I took all the sounds of the album and just tossed them at each other and wanted to kind of break this expectation of what people want from me or expect from me, because even though I may present to the world as this very square girl or this very like prim person, I'm certainly not. And I can only guess that Cinderella or Snow White, these princesses, were the same way. We idolize them as these very kind of perfect figures, but at the end of the day, Cinderella still had to run home before midnight, and her heart was probably beating really fast, and she was probably freaking the fuck out. And that's kind of what it feels like to be a young woman in love,
Oh, definitely. I have a bunch of sayings and fairy tales and folk tales that I come back to a lot, like the tortoise and the hare, or like I always like Rapunzel because she had her own apartment and she didn't have to have anybody come visit her unless she put her hair down.
Right.
And, like I just took these little parts as a kid. Like I was like, she's so cool. She gets to live in that castle. Like I think I was supposed to see her as isolated and sad and waiting for her prince. But I always just hung my hat on that part of like, ooh, what if I lived in a tower?
Yeah, she's a castle. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I was like, and nobody could bother me.
She's like really long hair and it's so sick. Like no one's telling her to cut it.
I know. But do you have one that you come back to where you're like, that's me?
Yeah, there's something on the tip of my tongue.
I go back a lot to, there's this one about this girl whose mom makes her go out in the snow to find strawberries.
Uh-huh.
It's like her stepmom or something who hates her because they're always like really like the women are really mean and the dad's just not there, and that's okay, which obviously we need to change that.
Dad's never there.
You have to go out in a paper dress and get these strawberries. And then she goes out and she's like, I'm going to die out here, obviously. And then she finds friends in the woods and they help her get strawberries so she can bring them back. And she comes back and she's like, thought I'd die, huh? I think about that a lot. I think it's like a martyr complex kind of like, I always think about paper dresses. Like wearing a paper dress. Like I really need to make myself like a paper dress.
Yeah.
I could see you doing a paper dress and like crumpled up.
I feel like I have worn a paper dress before. I'm like trying to like definitely in one of my adventures in the past few years, I feel like I've worn something paper. But no, I don't really know if there's like one specific story. I think there's always some sort of obstacle for the princesses or and they get over it. And I think I always was like, okay, if they can do it, I can do it one day. Like there was like a sense of hope to it.
Yeah.
Obviously, a lot of the stories are kind of like, how do I get to this prince? Or like, how do I fall in love? But the stories are rarely about that to me. Like it's kind of like the journey along the way that always made me feel kind of excited. But
yeah, or the characters that you pick out. Like I love the guy in Snow White who's supposed to kill her. And he's like, I can't. Like that guy's always, to me, like I was like, that's the story. Is that guy was like, no, I'm not participating. Right. And I was like, that's who I want to be. I want to be the person who's like, no, I'm not doing that. That moment was the pivotal moment for me in Snow White.
Yeah.
The Huntsman.
Truth be told, you're quite pathetic, Mr. Eclectic, Alan Poe.
So then the record goes in a wild direction of a song like Mr. Eclectic, which I wanted to ask you about. You kind of describe a certain kind of person. Like in my generation, Mr. Eclectic would have had like a William Burroughs book in his back pocket. And he'd be like, oh, let me tune your guitar for you, sweetie.
That's kind of still it.
Yeah, I'm wondering if you can elaborate on what is Mr. Eclectic wearing these days? Does he have like facial hair? Does he have a man bun? What's his style?
He could definitely, I think, like a mustache or something. I could see that. A little bit of facial hair. I think really the song was born out of it's kind of mean, but whatever. They'll be fine. My sister and I were just talking about how so often like guys would come up to us and, in an effort of flirting, sweet efforts of flirting often, kind of overestimate how snobby my sister and I might be just because we have a background in classical music and we talk about books a lot. But, ultimately, we're not snobby at all. We just grew up playing classical music, but the amounts of times I've had like people come and talk to me and talk about composers and classical music. And I'm like, who do you think you're talking to? Like, you're talking to, like, I know just as much as you about this. I probably know more than you about this. It's just kind of like a funny poke at the type of guy who has like a paperback in his back pocket and is like, a performative reader, which performative reading is still reading, but I think it's really funny.
Sorry.
It's a kind of mean song and I don't want to get hate, but
Oh, yeah, no, but it's fine. I mean, it's like we all have to be, but I feel like
this Mr. Eclectic is a timeless artifact. I think a lot about the things that are not new, that the type of, men that have been around for centuries and the kind of know-it-all man who talks a lot about like literature and poetry and art and books and stuff is just so funny to me as a way to like impress women. And like, I'm sure it works on a lot of women and that's great. But like for me and my twin sister, we're just like giggling because I think people think that that's what we want to hear often. And I'm like, no, I want to talk about what's viral on social media, right?
you're like, I've been doing the TikTok challenge.
Yeah,
I've been
like,
doing
what
this
about
TikTok
this
challenge.
Yeah, what about this TikTok dance? Have you seen this new like yogurt recipe, that everyone's making?
Yeah, I didn't. That my Mr. Eclectic was more like, is your boyfriend in the band? Like when I'm like walking in, or they know I'm in the band, and like it's immediately like they assume I hate them because like I'm a feminist, and so it's
Right.
like, well, I know you hate
You're in
me,
an all-female band, yeah.
and it's like I mean I wasn't even in an all-female band. Like there's a guy in Bikini Kill, and like it would be like, oh well. They would have this really negative attitude towards us because they would assume that we hated them. And we're like, you don't know what feminism is then because it's just a part of like worldwide equality. It's not just about feminism. It's about like ending like racism and, like classism and challenging capitalism. It's not about just like, we hate men.
Hating men,
It's about like, I don't even care. It's like, you're not my audience. You know what I mean? Just like work the soundboard.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry.
I swear to God, the amount of, especially when I was playing like my first round of shows, and it was like, it was one of those tropes that rings true. Like, there were a lot of people who thought I just knew nothing about what kind of sound I wanted. And like, I remember I very rarely use reverb, increasingly now as a tool, but like in my first round of shows, I hated reverb. I didn't want any reverb. And I like had like a fight with a sound guy one time because I told him no reverb and he was like, "Are you sure, honey?" And I was like, "Yeah." And then I was singing and sound checking and I could just like hear it start to creep in and I just stopped and I was like, I can hear the reverb. Not all sound guys. I love everyone I work with now, but it's definitely something that is real.
Obviously not all, but it's like, if 99% of the snakes bite you.
Yeah.
I used to also not use reverb, which is something we have in common.
You know, we like to serve it real.
Because I thought reverb was like putting pantyhose on my voice, and I wanted people to hear
I feel the same way. Like, honestly, it felt like skin color tights. I'm like, you can still see my legs. Like, it's just like a scar from shaving that is like that you can't see, but it's like a little shiny, and it ultimately it isn't cute. Like, and I can tell.
I mean, I wanted you to hear cellulite in my voice. You know what I mean? Like, I wanted to be like people to hear that's a real person. Yeah. That is a real person singing stuff, and it's not meant to be pretty or poppy or whatever. And I think maybe for you it was more, and stop me if I'm wrong, but I'm curious if it was more like, you're a really amazing vocalist, and it's like, I want you to hear what I can do. I don't need that as a crutch. I want you to hear my instrument.
Yeah, I think I didn't even know all these options were available when I started. I didn't know that you could have any type of reverb or filters or anything. Like, genuinely, I didn't know that was a possibility. Like, I thought that everybody singing in the microphone was just their sound. And so I guess that was kind of the first step of it. I just didn't even know it was an option. But I think for me, like, I want people to hear my real voice. I'd get so disoriented if people were hearing a different sound, kind of. And I don't know, like, what if I'm singing one day and I have no microphone and I'm just out on the street, and then people are like, wait a minute, she sounds so different. Like, I think also just stylistically, the singers I really admire from the past didn't use any of those things. Like, and you hear their voice and it feels so close to the ear. Like, a little bit of imperfection is so important to me. That is what makes it feel real. And there's so much emotion in imperfection that it feels kind of necessary to me. I mean, still 95% of the songs I sing live don't have any reverb. Like, the 5% of reverb, but otherwise I have nothing else on my voice. And it is so imperative to me that people are getting a real unfiltered version of my voice, because that is the voice that wrote these songs. That's the voice that is having these thoughts. So that's the voice that people deserve to hear.
Wow.
And I don't think this is with everyone. Like, there are a lot of singers that stylistically need, like, as a part of their performance and as a part of their style. And that is amazing too. But I think for my style, it just sounds weird with anything on it. It sounds like it's wearing pantyhose.
Yeah.
That is like the perfect analogy.
And it can change. Like, for me, you know, I finally started using some slapback and some reverb, and then experimenting with it as a texture when I was recording. And I was like, I got this thing called a Zoom box. It's like, it's really meant for guitar, but I was singing through it and making a record. And I used all kinds of effects because I did the thing where I was like, I have to be totally raw, totally unfiltered. And that was great at the time. But then I would listen back and be like, I don't really want to hear this.
That's kind of how I felt with, like, adding reverb to some more songs on this album. I think effects should be used as instruments. They should be used as things to add to the emotion or add to the sound, just like you'd add a guitar or a piano or strings if you want more emotion. Like, it should be a choice, a musical choice, you know?
Yeah, or like, I want this vocal to be more about the quality of the sound and less about the lyrics, you know? Like, I did songs that had so much distortion you couldn't tell what the lyrics were. And I just was singing with the typewriter as the drums. And it was like, you know, really fun. And I was having a good time. And I was trying to do the thing sort of like you were talking about, how we were talking about going to Berkeley and like opening up and kind of like relearning how to not know the rules. And when I was working in a new kind of way with like using effects and samples and stuff, I was all of a sudden like, oh, it doesn't have to be, because I was very, very lyric based and pretty didactic, you know? And I was like, I really wanted to see, wow, what would it be like if I was making not music for music's sake, but like that I was really concerned with the sound and not the words. And could I make something where the sound of the song conveyed the idea without the lyrics having to explain it?
I completely get that. I feel very much the same way in that Also, after you've done a couple of albums in a certain way, it's like you don't want to repeat the same things again and again. So you're like, how can I deliver this information in a different way? Like, oftentimes the words have been used by yourself, and it's like, so that's really cool to hear.
I did want to tell you that I am very cool because not only was I one time in Heavy Metal Magazine in like a pullout thing with my face like that, with my mouth open and I looked terrible, but I also donated something to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And it was a lunchbox, and we used to keep our money in it when we were touring back in the 90s. And I was wondering what you would donate to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Ooh, I feel like some piece from my cello. Like that is very symbolic of me. Like giving a piece of my cello feels like giving something from my body. It's like a finger. Like a tuning peg would be like giving a finger, which I think is kind of sick.
I just love the idea of you like actually sending a finger, like a bloody finger, and you're like
Like
here
an
it
ear?
is, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, like an ear. You're like the Van Gogh of
the rock
pop
roll
music.
Yeah, you know what? Actually, like a tuning peg on a cello probably is the ear.
I love it. So are you ready to play a game with me or what?
Yeah.
Okay. This is going to be a very fun game where we're going to look at a picture of an item taken from the vault at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Okay.
And we're going to guess which artist it belongs to. We don't need to guess anything else. Like if it's a dress, we don't have to say where did they wear it or anything like that. We just have to guess who this artifact belongs to. So if we can't work it out immediately, we're going to get 3 clues to help us. So don't feel stressed. But it's just kind of fun because it's like
I'm nervous. I'm so bad with names.
It's so fun. I'm terrible with names and stuff too, but it's fun because we'll work it out together. We're like a team now. We're like on a game show and we're a team. Okay, so let's go. We're going to see a picture and then let's describe it to the audience. Okay, it's a blazer.
It's a blazer that looks like a USPS envelope if it were a blazer.
I mean, I think I already know what this is. I'm not going to say because I want to see if you get it. Yeah, funny that we were talking about paper dress because this looks like it could be made out of some kind of paper. And it's like a white blazer with the, almost like international mail.
Yeah, and look at the 2 buttons with the string. That's kind of like how you open an envelope.
Yeah, it looks like an international envelope, but made into a blazer.
I don't know.
Okay, so it's a blazer worn by somebody. We're going to need another hint on this one. Okay, 1995. You were not alive, so...
No, I was 4 years shy.
So you're not beholden to know what this is. I do know what it is.
Okay.
I'm almost 100% I know what this is.
Okay, shoot. What is it?
I am just going to give you a hint. I think it's another person from Iceland who's really famous.
Did Björk wear it?
I think it was something she wore on an album cover. And the reason why it was throwing me off is because
Which one?
I also have horrible memory for names, but like outfits that Björk has worn, outfits that Björk has won is better because it's totally true. She wins
She
outfits.
does win them, yeah.
But I feel like I remember exactly like the hair, the makeup, the whole thing. Because I was around in the 90s and I was just like, she's incredible.
The coolest, yeah.
I mean,
so amazing. I've never actually met her, but like just Iceland is so small. Like I definitely see her around and I always respect her space. I'm
wait,
like,
you see her around? Like what? Like at like Chipotle?
Yeah,
like,
I mean, twice over the holidays I saw her. I was at a bar and I sat beside her at a restaurant.
Did you say anything?
No. I would never like want to go into her space. That is my ultimate sign of respect. I'm just let her be.
No, I saw her outside a movie theater, and there's no way.
She's still that girl. Like, she's still that bitch, for sure. I'm, like, genuinely so in awe of her. She's so cool, and, like, you know, even though our music is so incredibly different. I mean, she has some amazing jazz records, like truly.
Yeah.
Like her takes on jazz standards are so unique. And her first album, Gleam Glow, is like one of my favorite albums ever, and I grew up listening to it, and it like is jazz. It's with a jazz trio, but the way that she has like crossed genres and broken down walls between genres and just been ultimately herself while also introducing Iceland to the world, like has actually, you know, done so much for me as a musician. Every single time I mention I'm from Iceland to someone, they're like, wow, like there's so many musicians from Iceland. And I'm like, that's so beautiful that she's like created that road for Iceland to even be talked about in that way, in an artistic way.
I mean, she's
So
been
much respect
my
for her.
role model because not only just the best singer ever, like the weirdest, greatest, like intensely original person. I go back sometimes and just watch her interviews where she's like, well, the TV is eating my brain and I'm throwing typewriters off of mountains. And I'm just like, yes, Björk, please, more Björk.
Yeah.
But I saw this clip where somebody was hassling her with her kid in an airport and she went off on
Oh,
them.
that's
and I was,
terrible.
no, but I was so psyched to see her be angry.
She is the ultimate, like, if there is a single artist I can say truly stands on business and I need to take lessons from, it is her. Like, she's so
I'm excited for your villain era. Not like Björk's a villain, but I'm definitely excited. Okay, let's see the next clue because I think we have it.
Okay.
This artist was the subject of a 2015 retrospective exhibit at the Museum of Modern Art in New York, New York. Amongst other items, the exhibit included a gravity harp, humanoid robots, and a Tesla coil.
Still sounds like Björk. Like,
Yeah,
it does
safe
sound
to
like
say.
her. Yeah.
Safe to say. Okay, let's get the musical cue just for fun.
Yeah. You're right.
I'm letting you say her name because I can't say it correctly. Because everyone in all Americans are like, Björk.
Björk, yeah. Björk. You see, people have a hard time saying Laufey, and I'm like, actually, if you say Björk, the way that it's meant to be pronounced, it's actually might be harder.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to quickly read the information card on this artifact so we know exactly what it is. As a member of Icelandic alt-rock band The Sugar Cubes, and as a solo artist, Björk is an experimental storyteller with a powerful voice and wholly unique style that absolutely transcends genre and geography. Björk wore this jacket designed by Hussein Chalayan on the cover of her third solo album, Post. So there you go.
You know that you have a very acute eye.
Well, you weren't even born. You know what I mean? Like, I was at the time when all of her records were coming out. Like, I was just like, what's she going to wear on this one? Not only is she, you know, totally technologically transformative, like musically innovative, her fashion stuff was just fantastic. And like people made fun of her and she was just having a good time.
There's a magic in being made fun of, I've discovered.
I think it's cool that you're not like, I grew up in a time period where there was still this like really hedonistic thing where it's like, if you're in music, you have to be like wasted and blah, 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 blah. And I was like, but I want to put on a really good show and I want to be present for it. Like, why would I like get wasted and trash my voice? And you know what I mean? Like, I feel like finally people are starting to be like, yeah, that's not the era we're in anymore of the hedonistic rock star. Like, you can care about the world and you can make music and you can have fun, but it doesn't have to be about being wasted all the time or.
I honestly, like, I wish I could drink. I like go on tour and I'm just like, I can't have any alcohol or else my performance will go downhill. Like, it is an immediate effect. It is mostly because when I get drunk, I talk a lot and then I lose my voice. It's not necessarily the alcohol, it's the effects of the alcohol.
Do you become incredibly nice when you drink? Like, where you're like, let me hold your coat.
I'm always incredibly nice. So, yeah, I think so. For sure. I think being drunk just like kind of zooms in on who you are a little bit or parts of you. So yeah, I get really, really nice and then I get anxious.
Yeah. Well, then you wake up the next day and you're like, who did I promise I would help last night?
Yeah.
Because I'm always like, yeah, I'll help you move. No, I don't drink anymore because I was like literally waking up and like having to help people move who I just met. Like I was like,
drive them to the airport.
I'll play your benefit. I'll drive you to the airport. It's been wonderful talking to you, and I really hope we meet again. And I want to see you live so badly.
Whenever.
And hear that voice, hashtag your voice.
My voice.
Live.
No effects.
No effects. Use any effects you want. I think you're someone who's gonna go through many permutations.
I think so too. Who knows? Maybe the next album will be full of autotune. I mean,
it's gonna be like Skinny Puppy. It's gonna be just distortion. It's gonna be like Ministry, like Trent Reznor, Nine Inch Nails. Yes. That's what I'm waiting for.
Me too. All right. Thank you so much for having me. This has been such a fun chat.
And that's it for this episode. Thank you so much to my guest, Laufey. For more about Music Makes Us, you can follow the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame and me on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. And subscribe to future windows on Substack for exclusive content. Music Makes Us is a production of Radiotopia and Talkhouse for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. The production team includes Jocelyn Gonzalez and Morgan Flannery of PRX Productions, Shelby Morrison, Jenny Thomas, Melanie Wiggins, and Risa Gurkey, with special thanks to Dawn Waite, Sarah Deely, and Ben Adair. Yuri Lasorda is the showrunner, and Nick Dawson is our editor. Executive producers are Liz Peshkus, Ian Wheeler, Audrey Mardovich, and Uli Hoyta-Cohen. Publicity is led by J.R. Johnson, Sarah Avron, and David Catrone. And on the marketing team, Mike Russo, Maggie Gorville, and Carter Lou McElroy. We'll be back soon with more Music Makes Us. Tell all your friends and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts.